My colleague, Hank South, does an outstanding job covering Crimson Tide recruiting for BamaOnline.com. Busy stretch for Hank South right now as Alabama looks to put a close on the early signing period for the 2020 class. And Alabama, as we know here in the last 24 hours, picking up a big commitment from a big-time offensive line, a flip from the Auburn Tigers for the Alabama staff. Hank, as we bring you on here, tell us what Alabama's getting in Javion Cohen.
Hey, how's it going, Travis? Yeah, this is a guy Alabama has really coveted. They offered him earlier in the spring, earlier on in the 2020 cycle, but they really started to push for him down the stretch, starting in October, getting him on campus once in November, and then again for an official visit this past weekend, all while he was committed to Auburn. He brings a lot to the table. They were looking to add one more offensive lineman. He's got size, he's got length, he's quick, he's flexible. He can do several different things along the offensive line. I think tackle is probably where his future's at, but definitely one of these guys with a versatile skill set, moves really well, and can do all the things they really covet. So I think Bama's really happy with getting Javion Cohen on board. I think this could potentially wrap up their offensive line recruiting efforts for the 2020 cycle.
Let's talk about something you often talk about here on the program, and that's following the visits. Now, usually we talk about it in respect to where players are visiting, but it's that time of year, again, as you head down the stretch here for the early signing period, where it's coaches that are making visits. Based on that, is it telling in terms of the places where we see Nick Saban and his assistants tripping to here in recent days, that these are the primary positions, perhaps, not even so much in terms of just individuals, but the positions they play that Alabama is really looking to close the most with, say, outside linebacker or running back or some of these areas, Hank?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a combination of, the positions they're trying to close out strong and kind of how the calendar's setting up, because what we've seen from Nick Saban and since the inception of the early signing period is that he sees the guys that are signing early or announcing, at least at an All-American game. He sees those guys in December. He uses his one in-home visit the head coaches can use during this period in December, and then he'll see the guys that are signing in February. He'll see those guys in January. So, it's kind of a little, they kind of, like I said, both strategies. But, we've seen him. We saw Nick Saban hit the road real hard last week. He saw, most of all their top targets. He didn't seem as busy this week as far as targets. He's seen a lot of commits this week. He's seen 3 commitments today, or is expected to at least. But he's still been busy. He's been out every day. He's gone to see, guys like Timothy Smith, the defensive tackle commit. He saw Jason McClellan on Tuesday night, the Oklahoma running back commit. And then last week, he saw Darnell Washington, Phillip Webb, J.J. Pegues, several of the guys Bama is working to land in this early signing period. So that's kind of been his what he's been up to the last couple of weeks. And they're definitely they're hitting on all the guys they need to. They've been coast to coast working real hard.
Let's talk about the upcoming weekend. Is there much on the books for this weekend in Tuscaloosa as far as visitors are concerned, Hank?
This one's going to be a little bit quieter than we saw last weekend. As far as uncommitted recruits, Bama's currently expecting 4 guys. They're all committed to Alabama currently. Tyu Jones-Bell, the 4-star wide receiver from South Florida. This will be his first visit back since the summer. Since the LSU game. Trayshawn Holden, which is actually, I don't think Trayshawn Holden is a flip risk, but it's the first time he's been back to Tuscaloosa in a while, since the LSU game as well. And he's been taking some official visits elsewhere. So it'll be important to get him back on campus. Brian Branch, the safety commit from Georgia, he's heading back. And then last but not least, Quindarius Robinson, the linebacker from Birmingham. So a lot of commitments on campus this weekend before the early signing period. But if you kind of look at the whole calendar, Bama's got most of their guys in on official visits throughout the season or in the summertime that they're still pushing for.
Yeah, you've got that early signing period getting underway next Wednesday, December the 18th. But then you're going to go into the new year with still some guys out there, some targets, prime targets to finish up this Alabama recruiting class for the 2020 cycle. One position that it seems like among those that when you transition into the new year that could be of like hyper value is tight end. And it seems like because of the way the game is played now, there's fewer and fewer truly elite prospects at that position. Darnell Washington, we know, still out there for Alabama, the athlete prospect from Vegas. But as far as enough of these guys to fit programs that still covet those players, like Alabama, like Georgia, other programs that are very much interested in utilizing tight ends. What's still out there for Alabama at that position? And kind of update us. Alabama actually still has a commitment from a tight end in this class already in Caden Clark, but he's had an injury, right, that could maybe alter his plans a little bit.
Yeah, Caden Clark, unfortunately he tore his ACL and MCL in a game, or I believe maybe in practice earlier this year. That's held him out. Obviously, it was a season-ending injury, and it's one he's recuperating from. But his plan was to sign early, then enroll early. Right now, the plan is to sign early but enroll next summer as he continues to rehab that knee. Bama's been out to see him twice in Ohio during this contact period. Jeff Banks was there on Monday, and Kyle Flood, I believe, was on Thursday of last week. And so, the interest is still there. I would anticipate Nick Saban giving him a visit next month when he gets back out on the road after the dead period. But beyond, Caden Clark, there still are really some good tight ends Bama's in on. Darnell Washington is a guy, I think, if you look back in the spring and early parts of the summer, Bama was probably in the driver's seat for him. And, then Eric Gilbert happened, and they started to kind of there was some confidence there, and Darnell Washington started trending to Georgia along the way, and that's kind of where things have been with Darnell Washington as Bama has circled back and started to press for him more in the last 6 or so weeks. He's going to make a decision during the Under Armour All-America game, and we saw Nick Saban visit him last week at his school. Bama's actually seeing him again today, or they're expected to see him again today, so they're still certainly pushing for him. J.J. Pegues, the four-star jumbo athlete from Oxford, Mississippi, he actually has Alabama and Auburn tied atop his list at this point in time. I think Auburn might have a little bit of a slight edge there for him at this point, but he is deciding on Wednesday. And his list has gone back and forth, and then obviously you can't rule out Ole Miss getting in there late with Lane Kiffin as he starts to press for him as well. But you look beyond the early signing period. If Bama were to not get one of these guys like Darnell Washington or J.J. Pegues, and obviously they'll have the month of January if Washington does commit elsewhere as long as he doesn't sign. There's a guy named Brandon Frazier that Bama's been looking at, a three-star tight end from McKinney, Texas, that was recently decommitted from Arkansas after Chad Morris got let go, and he is looking at all his options, one of which is Alabama. And so, I wouldn't be shocked to see him set up an official visit to Tuscaloosa in January, depending on where they're at with guys like Washington and Pegues.
We're talking with Hank South, recruiting analyst there at BamaOnline.com, and right now at BOL. Just dropped moments ago on the website. Hank South goes in depth with quarterback commitment Bryce Young, the five-star dual threat from Mater Dei High School out in Southern California. Goes around, sort of runs the gamut with Bryce Young, gets his thoughts on a number of issues, including the decision to be made by Tua Tagovailoa in relation to the 2020 draft. Without going too far with this, giving too much away, the general mindset for Bryce Young that you took away from that interview, Hank, in relation to Tua's upcoming decision, where does he kind of sit just in general with where that's at with Tua?
Yeah, I mean, Bryce Young, since he flipped from USC, he's been locked in with Alabama. He's been helping recruit. He's been talking up Alabama and getting guys' ears, trying to get them to come to Tuscaloosa with him. And, there was never any question about, whether Tua, if he came back or if he didn't, whether that would have any sort of impact on his commitment to Alabama. But, obviously that's a storyline as of late. And so, we want to ask him about it. I don't think there should be any concern on Alabama fans' minds, whether any decision Tua would make would have any impact on Bryce. He's set on Alabama. That's his feeling on the situation. He's very close to Steve Sarkisian. He said he feels it's the best place for him, and that's where he's going to end up. So definitely, if there were any Alabama fans that had any sort of concern about kind of where he stood on things, that they should take a look at that interview, because I think that'll put their mind at ease.
Absolutely. Go there right now. Hank goes in depth with Bryce Young on a number of topics, gets really specific on some issues, and you need to do that. You need to check that out right now at BamaOnline.com. Hank, as always, appreciate the time. Thanks, my friend.
Anytime. Thanks, Travis.